While economic indicators in various nations have been improving, markets have been falling back. Just how superstitious are you? Is this a sign of September that's hitting the markets?
It could be, but I think more that the market had foreseen good numbers and therefore the market had run ahead of the numbers. Now that the numbers have come in and they've shown, well, yes, things are looking slightly better, they made the right call and now they're taking profit off the table.
Well, Rob, some traders saying that yesterday we should see this market come back soon and at the same time that a sell-off was needed, that we need people to take profits at this stage. Do you agree?
I do agree. The markets have run very high. I think the Japanese market was up here at a high of 11 months, and we saw some profit taking coming in today. So I do think that the market had overrun, and we have to get consistent positive news on the economic front for the next 6 months to really push through to higher highs than we've seen now.
So far, I mean, we've been reiterating that the markets have become more and more difficult to impress despite the slew of positive economic data we've seen hit the markets reacting negatively. Doubts remain over expenditure, and that is the big question. So bearing that in mind, is this any recovery here sustainable? Are we going to see real demand come in after all of these positive economic figures we've seen?
Well, that is the question that everybody's looking for. Can all the stimulus that's gone into the economies sustain a demand increase in manufacturing and in output, and then eventually to the consumer? Can that consumer start to alleviate debt and start to buy? And I think that is something that's still a little bit further away. We're still seeing unemployment figures not really coming down, and we have to see unemployment come down and the consumer really rising again to get a sustained and consistent move forward in manufacturing and in the economies.
With that being the case, we've got all eyes on US employment data out this week with today's challenger job cuts and ADP employment reports, a prelude to the official non-farm employment data on Friday. What are the expectations for Friday's data?
Well, they are expecting to be slightly better, and I think it's a very big number. I think that with all the other economic data that has been positive, with the PMI coming out in overseas and across all of the different European economies slightly better, barring the UK, it's a number that people will be looking to hopefully see on a positive sign. And if that number is negative, I think we're going to have a continued sell-off in the market.
And then we get back to that hurdle again of whether better than expected, even if it does come through, will be good enough to start off with. The fact is that markets have been falling and pretty aggressively at that, profit taking ensuing. Where would you be parking in this current environment?
Well, I think that if you did get into the market a few months ago, I would be taking some money off the table, putting it back into cash, even though the yield is not very high, and waiting for some type of pullback and a more aggressive pullback in the market. If you're quite aggressive and you want to be in the market, I do think that some of the industrials, such as barloads, are going to be showing good revenue going forward in the next year. And I think it's more of a value trade now and not necessarily a trading trade where you expect very good numbers straight away. So I think that some of the industrials and some of the general miners, if there is a good turnaround, I think Anglo will outperform while Billiton will underperform slightly because of their gearing on their balance sheet.
Let's shift then attention to the resources space. I mean, we've seen a pretty strong rand of late, despite the bit of weakness we saw this morning. We haven't seen, though, the pullback in mining shares that one would have anticipated, given that scenario. Has that come as a bit of a surprise to you?
It is a little bit of a surprise. It looks like if you take the platinum counter, it was up at 1290 earlier in August, and it's come down to about 1200. But it does seem to be an underlying buying coming in from China just below the 1200 level, and that's sustaining the commodity price at quite a good level for the miners. And it's similar with one or two of the other minerals, such as iron ore as well. So there is an underlying buying at slightly lower levels, and because of that underlying buying, the resource shares hasn't dropped as much as some of the others.
Well, looking at commodity prices themselves, they've been holding pretty steady, and commodity prices are driven by demand, not necessarily supply. Yesterday we had Merafe, for one, indicating that demand is picking up. Are you optimistic about commodity prices moving forward?
For a year out, I am. I think they are going to move forward. I think in the next 6 months, though, it's going to be very difficult to see where the market is and if the green shoots are really then sustainable. I think over a year period, I think commodity prices should hold at these levels. I think 930 on gold for the whole year is about right. We're slightly over that at 950 currently. and I think that the commodity prices at the levels are about fair value.
Well, looking at some company news out today, we've seen results out of Discovery Holdings. What did the market make of those numbers?
Well, Discovery trading slightly off from that. I haven't had a detailed look at the numbers, but on face value they look very good. They outperform in all of the other counters in the same sector quite significantly. I think headline earnings up 31%, where we see that Metropolitans were down 12%. Liberty earlier in the month had very poor numbers as well. So definitely the pick of the bunch. But we'll have to take a look in detail and look at the analysts, see if there are any holes in those numbers.
We know that you've mentioned that you've just had a surface look at these numbers, but are there any questions for the company still left unanswered? Because we're speaking to the company CEO, Adrian Gore, a little later on in the show today.
Well, they are winding down the US venture, Destiny Health, and they say that's going well, but we don't know how much losses are there and how much is that going to affect their bottom line. So there's a question that maybe you can ask later in the day to see how much impact that is going to put onto earnings going forward.